When I stopped caring, not about people, not about the dream, but about approval, everything fell into place. You see, in the early days, I cared too much about what others thought, about whether they believed in me, whether they laughed at me behind my back, whether the investors smiled when I pitched or smirked. I noticed it all. I soaked it in, and it crushed me. I remember walking out of yet another rejection meeting in San Francisco, the 23rd investor to say no. Not just a polite no, a degrading one. One of them actually leaned back in his chair and said, "Jack, do you really think a Chinese man can build a global internet company?" I smiled. I said thank you. But inside, it hurt. Not because of what he said, but because for a second I believed him. And that's the real danger. When your worth depends on someone else's vision of your future, you become weak, and weakness invites destruction. But I wasn't always like this. In the beginning, I believed I had to win their respect to earn my power, that I had to be liked, that I had to be validated. I thought that if I worked hard enough, eventually they'd applaud me, eventually they'd include me, eventually I'd be accepted into the room where the powerful sat. But I was wrong. Power doesn't beg. Power doesn't explain itself. Power builds quietly, alone, misunderstood. I was still learning that. That night I went back to my cheap hotel room, opened the window, and just sat in silence. The city buzzed beneath me. I could feel the world moving, busy, chaotic. While I sat still, breathing, watching, and something shifted, I realized the moment I stopped caring whether they clapped was the moment I started building something that could make the world listen. You don't need applause, you need clarity, and clarity only comes in silence. So I started practicing that. Every morning before I read emails or met with my team, I sat. No phone, no internet, just me and the questions that mattered. Why do I care what they think? Why do I need them to say yes? Who am I trying to prove myself to? The truth was, I didn't believe in myself enough yet. That's why I needed their permission. But when you really believe deeply, undeniably, you don't need their nod. You nod to yourself. You move, and when you move like that, the world adjusts, eventually. Let me ask you something. What would you do differently today if no one could see you fail? If no one could laugh at you? If no one could whisper behind your back? That's how I started moving. As if no one was watching, as if no one could stop me. And slowly, everything began to fall into place. We started building Alibaba in a small apartment in Hangzhou. No money, no tech expertise, just a group of misfits who believed something better was possible. I remember one of my closest friends asking me, "Jack, do you really think we can beat eBay?" I smiled. I said, "They have money. We have vision. Let's see which lasts longer." Every step we took after that wasn't approved. It wasn't safe. It wasn't clean or predictable. But it was real. It was bold. And it came from within. That's the power of not caring. Not caring about the noise, not caring about how big their house is, how fast their car moves, how loud their voice echoes. When you care about the wrong things, you give them the keys to your mind. But when you care only about the mission, everything aligns. The people who laughed, they vanish. The doubts, they fade. The fear, it transforms into something sharper, focused. There's a calm that comes when you detach from the opinions of the world. It's not arrogance. It's not blindness. It's freedom. Because now, I didn't need them to like me. I needed to build something that mattered. And I did. But not before I was broken first. You see, I was rejected by Harvard 10 times. I was turned down by KFC. Even local police departments said no. I kept asking the world to believe in me, and the world kept saying no, until I stopped asking and started acting. That's the day things changed, because the people who spend their lives chasing approval never build anything that lasts. But the ones who move in silence, they build kingdoms. They become storms. They become inevitable. And the irony, when you stop caring, they start paying attention, because they feel it. They feel that shift in you. You walk into a room and you're no longer looking for smiles. You're looking for purpose. You're no longer seeking permission. You're setting direction. You don't talk much. You don't explain. You build. You bleed in private. You rise in public. You lose friends. You lose sleep. You lose comfort. But what you gain is power. Not the power to control others. The power to no longer be controlled. And once you taste that, you never go back. Now I walk into meetings and I can tell instantly who's still trapped in their need to be liked, trapped in their fear of rejection, trapped in comparison. I know that look. I used to wear it. But now, I move differently, because I've learned the real flex is composure. The real strength is silence. The loudest room isn't the most powerful. The most powerful is the one who doesn't need to speak, but still commands attention. You earn that by not caring, by doing the work when no one's clapping, by staying calm when they mock you, by moving forward when they leave. And when you build like that, you don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anything. Your results speak. Your silence speaks, and they listen. Let me leave you with this. When the world pushes you to beg for approval, to shout for recognition, to react to every comment, try something different. Try silence. Try composure. Try not caring, and watch what happens next. They thought my silence was weakness. They mistook it for surrender. But silence is preparation. It's power in its purest form. Because when you stop explaining, when you stop defending, when you stop caring about being understood, you become dangerous. I remember the first major backlash after we launched Alibaba. It wasn't from our competitors. It was from people close to me. Friends, early allies, some even from within the company. They said I was moving too fast, too bold, that the Chinese market wasn't ready, that the internet itself was too risky. One of them said, "Jack, slow down. You'll burn everything you built." I listened, but I didn't agree. Instead, I looked out the window, watched the traffic outside, and asked myself a quiet question. Am I building for their comfort or for the future? Because sometimes the people around you love you, but they don't see what you see. They don't carry the vision. They don't sit with the sleepless nights. They don't bear the weight of your convictions. Only you do. And that's why I learned, not everyone deserves a seat at the decision table of your destiny. So I started detaching, not from people, from expectations. The expectation to always make sense, the expectation to explain myself, the expectation to follow the path everyone else approved of. And in that detachment, I became sharper. I used to walk into meetings trying to win hearts. Now I walk in trying to win markets. I used to care who liked me. Now I care if the vision moves forward. That's the difference between caring. Most people think they're committed, but really they're just emotionally invested in being liked. That's not commitment. That's performance. True commitment is quiet, unshakable. It's the decision to continue even when the world misunderstands you. And they did misunderstand me. Many times. When I said Alibaba would connect small Chinese businesses to the world, they laughed. When I said we'd beat eBay in China, they called it suicide. When I spoke broken English on international stages, they mocked me. But I kept showing up, because I didn't need to be fluent in their language, I needed to be fluent in my vision, and that vision burned through every rejection. Do you know what happens when you stop caring what they think? You stop filtering your ambition. You stop diluting your truth. You stop shrinking. And when you stop shrinking, they either adjust or disappear. Both are blessings. Let me tell you about a moment that changed me. It was late 2002. We were scaling Alibaba quickly, but cracks were forming. One of our top executives pulled me aside. He said, "Jack, if you want to survive, you need to start playing politics." He meant internal politics, office dynamics, alliances, favors. It was a warning, but also a threat. I nodded, and the next morning I made my decision. I fired him, not out of anger, out of clarity. Because here's the truth. The moment you start caring more about power games than the mission dies. I built Alibaba to serve people, not to please powerful ones. That moment taught me something deeper. You can either care about perception, or you can care about impact. But never both. I chose impact. And yes, it cost me. People walked away. Loyalty was tested. I was labeled harsh, cold, calculating. But guess what? The company got stronger. The culture got clearer. The vision became louder, even in silence. There's a moment in every builder's life where you have to choose. Protect your comfort or protect the mission. You can't do both. Comfort asks you to please everyone. The mission asks you to please the future. I chose the future. And slowly I realized something else. When you stop reacting, you start creating. That's the true edge. They move in emotion. You move in focus. They chase validation. You chase evolution. They scream louder. You think deeper. And that is how you win. Now let me ask you something. Who are you still trying to impress? Whose voice still echoes in your mind at night? What's stopping you from letting that go? Because until you do, you'll never be free. You'll build with one hand and hold fear in the other. You'll speak, but still ask for permission with your eyes. You'll rise but stay tethered to their judgment. And that's not freedom, that's performance. But when you stop caring, really stop, you unlock something rare. You become consistent, not loud, not emotional, not unpredictable. Consistent, and consistency beats talent, every time. I wasn't the smartest in the room, I never pretended to be, but I showed up, day after day, calm, focused, committed, and that rhythm, that's what built Alibaba. It wasn't a grand speech, it wasn't a viral moment, It was thousands of quiet decisions no one saw but everyone felt. That's the art of detachment. You don't pull away to escape, you pull away to build. Because the best builders, they're not addicted to being seen. They're obsessed with making something that lasts. Now when people ask me, Jack, how did you keep going when the world was against you? I smile, because the answer is boring. I didn't fight the world, I just stopped listening to it. And in that silence, I found power. Power to act. Power to endure. Power to see clearly. Let me leave you with this. When you detach from the noise, you hear your own voice again. And that voice, it's the only one that matters. I used to think composure meant staying calm when things went well. That discipline was about routines, about habits. I thought strength meant pushing forward, no matter how hard it got. I was wrong. True composure, the kind that makes people wonder what you know that they don't, is forged in chaos, in confusion, in humiliation. It's not about holding it together when you're winning. It's about holding it together when everything you built starts to crack. There was a time late 2008 when Alibaba was under more pressure than ever before. The global economy was crashing. Investors were nervous. Our suppliers were panicking. The entire system was trembling, and inside the boardroom, fear began to spread. I remember sitting in the meeting, watching as my senior team began raising voices, throwing out frantic solutions, arguing over who to blame. Some even said we should sell, merge, cut our losses. And I sat there, still, not because I didn't feel the fear, but because I refused to let it speak for me. You see, panic makes you predictable. But composure makes you unreadable. And when no one can read your next move, you're powerful. That day I didn't speak for a full 20 minutes. I let the noise play out, let the fire burn down to embers. And then in a voice so quiet that people leaned in to hear, I said, "We don't build in sunshine, we build in storms." And the room went silent. Because in chaos, they don't need louder leaders. They need calmer ones. That moment taught me something. Leadership isn't about answers. It's about energy. If you walk into the room tense, people mirror it. If you walk in grounded, even if you're uncertain, people stabilize. So I trained myself to be still, to be the eye in the hurricane. And let me tell you, that kind of control, it isn't natural, it's earned. You earn it by sitting with pain without reacting. You earn it by letting go of what you can't control and mastering what you can. I couldn't control markets or media or global bank, but I could control how I breathed when fear entered the room. I could control the tone in my voice when everything seemed to fall apart. I could control the silence between my words. That's composure, and the deeper I practiced it, the more powerful I became. Not because I had more answers, but because my mind stayed sharp when others drowned in emotion. Let me ask you something. What if your next breakthrough wasn't in action, but in stillness? What if the strength you've been chasing isn't about movement, but about not being moved? They insulted me. They questioned me. They doubted me. But I kept my rhythm because I knew if I reacted to every spark, I'd burn the house down before I finished building it. So I stopped reacting and I started responding. There's a difference. Reactions come from fear. Response comes from vision. Reactions make you loud. Responses make you precise. Reactions feel powerful. Responses are powerful. You want to know who has real control? The one who doesn't need to prove it. And that's what I became. Not unshakable, because I never doubted, but because I trained myself to sit inside the doubt without losing direction. I remember once, during a crisis, a journalist asked me on live television, "Jack, are you scared this could be the end?" And I looked into the camera and said, "Fear is a visitor. I just don't serve it tea." The interview went viral, but it wasn't a line I practiced. It was a belief I earned. You don't get there overnight. You get there by letting yourself be misunderstood and staying still. You get there by watching people leave and not chasing. You get there by learning that your calm is your currency. The world pays attention to the ones who remain composed when others collapse. That's how you lead. And not just others. That's how you lead yourself. In the early days, I tried to motivate myself with pressure. Work harder, move faster, fix everything. but pressure without peace creates burnout. So I shifted. Now I move with tension, but I also move with stillness. Like a bow pulled tight. Tension isn't bad, it's power, but only if you control the release. Let me tell you about a night I almost gave up. It was 2003. Funding was tight. The market was skeptical. I had just flown 16 hours for a meeting that ended in silence. The kind of silence that says, "We don't believe in you." I returned to my hotel room and sat on the edge of the bed. Everything felt heavy. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I didn't call anyone. I just sat. And in that silence, I asked myself one question. If no one claps, will I still build this? And the answer came. Not loud but clear. Yes. Because composure doesn't ask for applause. It asks for alignment. It asks if your actions are still rooted in your mission, even when no one believes. And mine. So I stood up. I drank some water, and I booked a flight to my next meeting. That's composure. Not a lack of fear, but a refusal to obey it. Now years later, when people say I'm calm under pressure, I smile, because they don't see the storms I've sat through in silence. They don't see the decisions made without sleep, the betrayals endured without revenge, the losses accepted without self-destruction. That's the cost of composure. But the reward? You become untouchable. Not because nothing hurts you, but because nothing controls you. Now when a crisis hits, I don't panic. I pause. Because in the pause comes clarity. In the breath comes precision. And in the silence comes the answer. Let me leave you with this. If you want to be powerful, don't just move faster. Move calmer. Because speed without stillness is chaos. But speed guided by stillness, that's mastery. The most dangerous man in the room is not the loudest, not the richest, not the one with titles or influence. It's the one who's already let go. Let go of needing applause. Let go of needing revenge. Let go of needing anything outside of himself to feel whole. That's who I became when I stopped caring. In the final years of Alibaba's early rise, we were in the spotlight. People started clapping, cheering, inviting me to speak, to lead, to be the symbol of China's internet future. And I'll admit, for a moment, I almost lost myself in it. Praise is a drug, a subtle one. It flatters you while it chains you. People don't notice when they become addicted to approval. They just start doing things for applause instead of purpose. And that's the most dangerous place for a builder to be, when your hands are working, but your heart is waiting to be liked. So I had to strip all of that away. I remember one moment that forced me to face it all. A major Western media outlet did a story on Alibaba, and instead of celebrating, they questioned everything. Our structure, our transparency, even my leadership. People around me were furious. Jack, we should respond. We should clear the air. But I didn't flinch. I told them we're not here to be liked. We're here to last. And that single mindset, that shift from approval to longevity, changed everything. Because when you stop needing to be understood, you free up all your energy to build something that can't be ignored. That's the secret. Indifference to noise, obsession with clarity. And when you live like that, everything falls into place. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. Because now the betrayals don't break you. They inform you. The losses don't define you. They refine you. And the silence, it doesn't scare you. It centers you. Let me ask you something. What if the life you're chasing is already inside of you, but it's been buried under the weight of caring too much? What would happen if you finally stopped asking for permission? If you stopped performing? If you stopped adjusting your vision to fit their comfort? You'd be dangerous. Not to others, but to your excuses, to your self-doubt, to the version of you that keeps waiting for the world to agree before you act. I had to kill that version of me. The Jack that wanted to be liked. The Jack that chased praise. The Jack that feared failure not because of the pain but because of the embarrassment. That version had to die, so this one could be born. The one who walks into rooms and doesn't scan for approval. The one who speaks when it's time and stays silent when it's not. The one who knows you either build something timeless or you build something popular, but rarely both. And now I understand power. It's not control over others, it's control over self, over emotion, over reaction, over ego. You become truly powerful when you can sit in a room full of noise and only listen to your inner voice. That voice, it's quiet, but it never lies. It told me to keep building when no one believed. It told me to forgive when betrayal hit. It told me to pause when everyone else rushed. It told me to rise, not to be seen, but because it was time. Now when young entrepreneurs ask me what they need to succeed, I don't give them tactics. I give them truth. I say let go. Let go of the fear of being misunderstood. Let go of the shame of starting small. Let go of the pressure to impress strangers. Let go of the stories you inherited that said you need to be perfect, loud, rich, or praised to matter. You don't. What you need is silence. Silence to hear your vision. Silence to make your move. Silence to become unshakable. They'll ask you one day how you stayed calm while everything burned. How you moved when no one believed. How you kept building when everyone else quit. And you'll smile because the truth isn't flashy. It's quiet. You stopped caring. Not because you were cold, but because you were finally focused. Because you stopped chasing noise and started creating meaning. That's when the world adjusts. That's when the right people find you. That's when the momentum shifts. And that's when the phrase, everything falls into place, becomes more than a line, it becomes your reality. So if you're watching this and you're tired of trying to be seen, of chasing validation, of proving yourself to people who never really mattered, here's what I want you to remember. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to go quiet enough to hear the truth inside of you. Then move, build, rise, and when the world wonders how you did it, tell them nothing, because you don't owe anyone your process. You only owe the world your result. And that result, it begins the moment you stop caring.